So here we are again down at Lake Okanagan today. We like to come out here where it's a little bit more quiet from time to time. Anyways, let's have a chat about Canada's, I don't know what else to call it. I call it employment scheme for people coming from overseas. It's a system that has long been overly used and overly, well, let's be honest, there's a lot of corruption in it. They tried to tighten up on it, but they didn't tighten up very well. And of course, big companies like Tim Hortons and Restaurant Brands International, and of course their individual franchisees, are making huge piles of money off of it, at Canadian taxpayer expense, might I add. Right now they have a system, and this is what keeps all those little immigration offices open all over BC and Alberta and actually all across Canada. They have the workplace assessment. In other words, they check to see if you can't hire somebody locally. It has to run for 3 months, somewhere in the 3 months before the start date. And the data is collected. Now the data is collected, they pay a $1,000 fee. The data is collected, however, by the individuals who are applying for it, or their third party. It can be any type of company or corporate entity. But the third party is almost always an immigration scam artist location who will profit from it, from both the employer and the person who's coming over. You'll hear a lot about exploitation stories. In fact, if you have been exploited by one of these systems whereby your income's being taken off for your transit here, your whatever. It's quite often it's room and board type stuff or simple support type stuff. If that has happened to you, please give me a call or give me a message. I'd like to share your story. In the meantime, we have a situation where, like I said yesterday, immigration is out of control in large, dense populated areas where we don't actually need any more immigration, and practically non-existent in more rural communities and northern communities where we actually need people to fill certain roles. Those don't necessarily need to be anything special. The two loons that were out here earlier today have seemed to have looned off somewhere. I don't know where. Now, here's the biggest problem with that, is once they do the labor assessment and they bring over someone from overseas, quite often it's the sender, a member of the family of the owner of the company that's trying to bring them over. It's consistently like that for several groups. They are plopped down and end up doing the job, depressing the wages of people who actually are already working. I mean, what is the living wage now in Vancouver? I think it's over $28 an hour. That's just a living wage, which puts the minimum wage in BC at just over $10 under what it takes to keep alive. It's not a pretty sight. Speaking of not a pretty sight, here I am. So I'm going to just sit down. As you know, my legs have been killing me since my little Tim Hortons accident, particularly this week. I don't know why. There seems to be a lot of muscle strain on my calves and through my thighs. Must be how that particular joint was discombobulated when the disc slipped out. Anyways, how to reform the system. It can be reformed. Oh, there's one other thing I forgot to tell you. Quite often the people being bought in will be paid minimum wage for whatever it is. And as I said before, they'll end up paying room and board, and they'll end up paying back the immigration company that bought them out here on behest of the quote employer. And they will be stuck and trapped in that job once they're here, because you can't go around switching. There has been now an amendment made which will allow employees in that type of situation to change employers during their work visa stay. But that hasn't been ratified yet, I don't believe. I remember seeing it on the Order in Council list. The best way to actually deal with this, because these employers bringing people over also receive a portion of a subsidy to the wages of the person who they bought over directly through federal government grants, which represents a whole different ballgame, because now it's every taxpayer in Canada helping bring over people into areas we don't really need people. We don't really need every single Tim Hortons to be staffed with people who don't speak English as a first language, or every McDonald's, or every hotel, or every hospitality industry, security industry, trucking industry. I mean, there's a lot of industries that have been using cheap labor that they get at a discount, plus get grants to bring over, to keep their businesses afloat, which means they're floating on your tax dollars and my tax dollars. And I'm so frustrated with CRA right now, I can honestly say it is my tax dollars. That's another story. Tell you about it some other day. In the meantime, the best way to solve this is to take the whole system out of those immigration offices' hands. Totally strip them of any third-party interest. What has to happen is we need to charge real fees to begin the process. So let's say the job is in March and you have to start posting your want ads in January. Well, you would post those. Right now you do have to do it through the job bank, but there's no real monitoring at the end of it. There's no caseworker who goes through and checks to see if those resumes have overqualified or overqualified people, or anything else. It's left up to the potential employer to do, or the third party to do, and both of them have vested interests to bring in somebody who they can rip off. Well, that's what it is. They're basically stealing from these people and hold in check. What they need to do now is pay a real fee. So we'll make it, let's say, for each of these positions, in the estimate that the posting is a minimum of six months, you'd have to pay $4,000 to the federal government. All of the job postings would be on job banks like they are right now, except all responses would go to a selected oversight at Immigration Canada. They would go through those resumes and they would see if there is indeed a need for bringing somebody else over to do a job that one is usually done better by somebody who already knows the culture and the environment that we live in Canada, who doesn't get freaked out the first time they're driving a truck and hits a snowstorm, or doesn't freak out the first time a customer talks back to them because of bad service. Talk about bad service. Today's Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons. And I think Restaurant Brands International may have changed their coffee vendor yet again, because it was bitter as all get-go. I don't know what it is, but they don't seem to have an ability to make the coffee that they wanted to or used to. I know that they dumped that supplier when Restaurant Brands took over. That supplier then started selling it to McDonald's, which is why you now get Tim Hortons coffee at McDonald's. We do quite often. But during roll-up to one, of course, we have to do the roll-up. Where was I? Oh, right. So the oversight people would then say, yes, you can bring in a worker, or no, there are far too many Canadians available, you can't. And you would still link that directly to, as I spoke about yesterday, region by region unemployment figures. Now, there is one other side effect of the workers, and for that matter, student visas in Canada. A good portion, and there's no statistics I could find on how big a proportion yet. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I just didn't get a chance to go through every single statistical database. A good portion, though, remain in Canada at the end of their student visa or their work visa and either work under the table, which of course means that then again their employment is being subsidized by Canadian taxpayers, because there's no income tax coming off that, there's no CPP coming off that, there's no WCB fees coming off that, there's just nothing coming off that. It's under the table. It's going to be a lower wage than on the table, and that's the way it seems to be going. I would say the best solution is to just stop, put a 5-6 month moratorium against any immigration into Canada, with the exception of doctors, nurses, hospital specialists, and of course those in doing research and science. And revamp the system. As I said, link it legislatively, zone to zone, by the percentage of unemployment, and fix this particular mess of coming in and depressing everybody's wages. Canadians end up paying for it, every Canadian. If you depress everybody's general wages, well, that means that family can't spend to keep the economy going. They can't do anything but work. And regardless of what you think about the left, we are not a big fan of people not being able to spend in the economy properly. We're also not a big fan of them not being able to have children or raise children because they don't see the money. They don't have any idea if they could even afford it, who would take time off. Luckily, even with the really good maternity benefits the federal government does provide here in Canada, it still is hugely expensive to have children. I know I've fostered a few of them myself. And yeah, no, the ministry never pays enough to cover the cost of actually fostering a kid. But that's also another story. In the meantime, guys, if you like the content or even would like to hear more craziness come out of my mouth, please subscribe, hit like. The next video is going to be up. Oh, it's probably going to be up at the end of tomorrow, as we're doing the Tim Hortons thing. If you don't see that, if you go to the short, there's a little short there about us visiting the Tim Hortons in the region and letting them know that you don't get hurt, because if you do, you're going to get screwed over and be waiting and waiting and waiting on stuff. And I mean, right now, if treatment doesn't proceed quickly, the longer we wait, the more difficult it'll be for me to make any type of recovery, let alone a full recovery. So anyways, guys, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Keep this in mind. Immigration does help build Canada. Immigration is important. Immigration must be handled correctly. If you want to bring down or at least stabilize housing prices and rental prices, you can't keep shoving people into Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, Halifax. That just doesn't work. They have to go to places where they're actually needed, and they have to remain there for 5 years. By the time that 5 years is up, they will be accustomed to being in that environment, and they will likely stay in that environment instead of going somewhere else. Thank you, guys. Ta-ta for now.